Hello, everybody. Welcome to Calls. This is the 2023 3M Open DFS Tactics show. We have the final forecast to check in on, ownership projections, and much more. I'm quite excited. So let's get straight into it, shall we? All statistics provided tonight and every night are from fantasynational.com. It is simply the best tool out there for your money. It's going to make you a much smarter golf gambler and a much better golf DFS player. Go check out fantasynational.com. You won't regret it. In the description to the video, there are links to all of the social media. First off, my Twitter and Instagram, where I posted some research earlier this week around the 4 winners of the previous 3M Opens. So if you would like to see the weekly research that I post and collect on the PGA Tour, then give me a follow at your preferred social media site, Twitter or Instagram. Twitter is also where I place my betting cards, and that will be no different. That'll come out tonight after the DFS Tactics show. So if you would like to see the weekly wagers that I make on the PGA Tour, then give me a follow over at Twitter. And Twitter is also where I do my baseball content, where I post 3 players that I think will accrue their value in DFS and 3 players that I don't. So if you'd like to see quick hitting baseball content, give me a follow over at Twitter. Finally, for social media, Gabe's Twitter is in the description as well. He writes a very good article called The Fringe. Go show Gabe some support. And because it is Wednesday evening, we will be over in his Substack chat after the show this evening, continuing the DFS discussion. Follow Gabe over at Twitter and subscribe to his article. It is free. And then finally, we are live. Chat is open. Want to hear from you all. Who are some of the wagers that you've made for the 3M this week? Who are you targeting? Who are you pivoting to and fading away from? How do you think the 3M is going to play? All of that good stuff. Would love the interaction. I want to hear from the community. So let's figure out our strategies and our tactics for the 2023 3M Open. And we're going to start, as we always do on a DFS Tactics evening, with the updated Wind Finder forecast. Good evening, Joey. Thanks for jumping in chat. Much appreciated. Hopefully you are ready for the 3M Open. We're going to see if we can't continue our success from last week. Not at the Open Championship, but the Barracuda having the winner there and a very solid DFS performance. We're going to see if we can't continue that momentum and change our luck from the Open Championship. Thanks for jumping in chat. The forecast has changed quite considerably, even in the past 24 hours or so. Last night, went to bed thinking that Friday was going to be pretty crazy in terms of weather. There was a pretty clear wave advantage. I thought the course and the tournament might play a little difficult. And I woke up this morning and the forecast completely changed. And it's changed often throughout the day. As of right now, you can see that Blaine, Minnesota is expecting what looks to be a very heavy but very quick thunderstorm with winds at 30 miles an hour sustained at some point tomorrow afternoon. And you can see the temperature really falls off quickly. With that said, if you have the ability to stay up late this evening, 11:30 or so Eastern is about the next Wind Finder forecast update, or if you have the ability to wake up extremely early tomorrow, this forecast has changed quite a bit, as I've mentioned. So I do not think this is going to be the final or how the forecast is going to look by the time players tee off tomorrow. But all I can go by is what I see at the moment. So if this is indeed the final forecast that you have before the 3M, and if it somehow doesn't change between now and tee off tomorrow, I would have to give a pretty significant advantage to the Thursday AM, Friday PM wave. You see this thunderstorm that's coming in. Take away even this, what looks to be an hour of rain and whatnot, you're still having gusts, up near 40 miles an hour, even without the rain. Now, the course will get softer, yes, but it's already soft because they had a thunderstorm yesterday, I believe. Not to mention that the wind direction, the cardinality of the wind changes. So the players in the Thursday morning wave, tomorrow morning's wave, while they are facing different cardinality of wind, you see south to north essentially, they're going to be facing kind of northeast to southwest winds by the time they play Thursday or Friday afternoon, but they're facing this, or they're having the same, at least forecast, amount of wind. Not a whole lot in the afternoon on Friday. Yes, the Friday morning is the calmest right now of the forecast, but this looks horrendous. Thursday PM looks horrendous. So if I could avoid having players in the afternoon tomorrow, I would. Having said that, there are a few players that I really, really like coming into the week, not knowing when their tee time was going to be, and they just happen to have the bad half of the draw. I still like, those players, but I'm certainly downgrading them quite a bit thanks to this forecast. So that is how I see this at the moment. Feel free to jump in chat if you see it differently, if you think that the course is going to be so extremely soft and the winds are going to be so calm that you think the Friday morning wave has the advantage. Jump in chat, let me know in the comments. But with this forecast, I have to imagine the Thursday AM, Friday PM half of the draw has the advantage at the moment. Good evening, Stephen. Thanks for jumping in chat. Glad to catch up with you a little bit on social media. And thanks for coming back. It's been a little while since you were in chat. I believe it might have been the John Deere or maybe the Rocket Mortgage. Thanks for coming back. Much appreciated. Just covering the forecast and how it has changed quite a bit even in the past 24 hours. So if you have the luxury of staying up late this evening for the next update on Windfinder, I highly suggest you do so, or waking up early to get the updated morning forecast, because this forecast has changed considerably in the past 24 hours. But as of right now, I have to give the advantage, based on what I see, to the Thursday morning, Friday afternoon wave. But I will keep that up in case there are more questions. Let's go ahead and move to Fantasy National very, very quickly. Do not mind the starred players. I just needed to star some players to get some ownership projections. So you see I've got the moderate and windy filter selected. Going back to the beginning of 2022, based on that forecast that we saw, especially for Thursday afternoon, our top players in the wind in the field this week: Justin Thomas, Sung Jae, Tony Finau, Billy Horschel, Cameron Young, Tom Hoagie, Hideki, Sahith Theegala, Scott Piercy, and Alex Noren. Do you think it'll be bad enough they delay and the afternoon players won't have to play in it? If possible. And that's another aspect that you have to consider. Does the afternoon wave tomorrow get pushed into Friday? Does the Friday round get pushed back, and where we see kind of a Saturday morning cut? It is quite possible. Again, all I can go by is what I see here. If the rain is only an hour or two, I would imagine they would play after. But it does look like the course is going to get soaked. So we'll have to see. I am definitely... Me personally, I think that they are going to come back out based on this forecast, but I also have the luxury of being able to stay up late and get updated forecasts. But with this, I would still very much prefer avoiding the Thursday PM wave if possible. But coming back to Fantasy National, so here are your top players in the wind. I'll scroll down to top 25 or so. Continue on down this list: Adam Long, Gary Woodland, Keith Mitchell, Adam Hadwin, Kevin Yu, Cameron Percy. There's your top 15 or so in terms of players in the wind. The other end of the spectrum, players who have not played well in the wind the past 18 plus months or so: Andrew Landry, Harry Higgs, Nick Watney, Jim Herman, Max McGreevy, Dylan Wu, Jason Duffner. Let's see, Højgaard and Marty Doe, they have fewer rounds, but they haven't played well in the small sample size. Richie Werenski, Ryan Brim, Martin Trainer, Norlander, and on down the list there, where these players have not played well in the wind. With this, I'll leave it on this as well, but I'm going to go to the mixed condition model. And I have some explanation and a mea culpa, if you will, from last week. Now, yes, I did hit Akshay Bhatia last week at the Barracuda, but the Open Championship was a disaster. It was a very, very disgusting performance from my end. No sugarcoating it. It was just bad. And I have been going back all the way to the beginning of 2023 or the beginning of 2022 like we just did for the wind. And honestly, I truly think that might have led to some errors on my part, because Brian Harman had been in very, very good form leading up to the Open Championship and knew that. But going back all the way to the beginning of 2023, brought in rounds such as from the Sony, from the American Express, these tournaments that aren't really current form. So I did a little bit of a change this week, and I am not one above criticism. I try to self-critique and be open and honest about weaknesses and flaws in my methodology and all that. And so, when you have a bad performance, or when I have a bad performance like I did at the Open Championship, I feel pretty bad considering, I am putting this out and giving recommendations based on it, and it was a bad mixed condition model. And it very well could be that it's an overreaction based on Brian Harman winning the Open to change the methodology. If it is, I'll own that mistake next week. But Brian Harman had been in very good form leading into the Open. So I wanted to try and find a way to essentially keep the playing field even, meaning I wanted to use a little bit of the timeline discretion, I guess is the best way to say it, but really give weight to the current form or the immediate rounds. So what I've done, all of these metrics, off the tee, approach, and then the pars 3s, 4s, and 5s further down, they still have the 1-1-23 start. So I am going as far back as 1-1-23 if it applies, because I am limiting the number of rounds. So, for example, this off the tee, I'm only gathering the last 24 rounds going back as far as the beginning of 2023. So most players, their 24 rounds are somewhere in May or April, or if they've played a lot like Sungjae, even as recent as June. And that's all far as they're going back, because they've played 24 rounds. I don't know if that is correct, but that in my mind, as I thought about it earlier this morning trying to make this mixed condition model, I felt was a good balance between trying to keep the integrity of the timeline, but trying to give enough weight or enough credence to recent form. Because if I didn't put that 2023, cutoff, then some of these players, if you just put last 24 or last 36 rounds, you could go back to 2022 or even 2021 for some of this data, especially if they don't play often. Good evening, P. Thanks for jumping in chat. Much appreciated. You've caught me at the very end of an explanation on a little bit of the change that I did with the metrics and filters this week. So hopefully you'll have a chance after the show to replay the beginning and to get the full explanation. But I wanted to make sure I spent enough time explaining to you, the viewers, that the methodology changed a little bit, the reasoning why, and again, a little bit of an apology, especially for how bad the Open was, when it shouldn't really have been that bad, because the Open really focuses on current form or most recent form, and I had gone all the way back to the beginning of 2023, which was just a mistake, I believe, on my part. So when you see something like this, L24 2023, that's just denoting that I am taking the most recent 24 rounds, but I still have that timeline, that time frame, starting at the beginning of this year all the way up to last week in the Open/Barracuda. So with that explanation out of the way, let's go into the actual mixed condition model, the metrics I used, and the reasoning behind it. Even with research, the Open was tough for a lot of us, to be honest. It was, but from somebody who is a statistical analyst by trade, I recognized the flaws in my process, especially when I, really critiqued it this weekend. And the more I thought about it, the more it was a pretty egregious error from somebody who is as trained as I am. That's the disconnect from somebody in my world or from, with my experience, my expertise, what I've been trained in, versus somebody who's not. It would be different to say, oh, it was just a bad week, versus somebody as myself who has, went to school for this, was formerly a professional in this field. It was a pretty egregious mistake on my end, and one that I shouldn't have made. And therefore, when I do something like that and put it out last week for the Open, I'm going to be the first to call out myself and say it was a mistake. Again, it's just the mea culpa. This is me being transparent. This is me being honest with you as the viewer, as somebody who I want to continue to come back and watch and support and join me in discussion. But if I don't critique myself, then there's that disingenuous thought there. Hopefully I explained that well enough or whatnot, but I do feel I felt pretty bad from last week, knowing what I was, what I did, what I looked at, and it was a mistake. So explaining the differences there. Moving to this week and the mixed condition model for the 3M, we definitely have a lot of room for improvement from last year's mixed condition model, considering the poor performance it had. And the difficulty with this mixed condition model for me was the fact that the forecast has changed so often, even from today. I went to bed last night thinking that I was going to use some difficult to par filters based on wind and all that. You see, I've actually got some easy to par filters in there. the forecast has changed enough that this tournament can play a few different ways. I see it playing as a little bit more easy at the moment, except for the obvious tomorrow afternoon deluge that looks like it's going to happen. But I don't foresee difficult scoring conditions Thursday, and Friday looks really benign, really favorable for scoring. Saturday is beautiful. I know we didn't look at it, but we'll go to it. Saturday looks amazing. Maybe a little bit of gusts in the morning, but I mean, in the afternoon and into the leaders looks brilliant for scoring. Now, Sunday looks like there could be some weather or at least some more wind moving in, but I mean, most of Sunday looks great. So again, all I can do is go based on this forecast. I see it playing easy as of now, and that'll be where I could be wrong. If the weather or if the winds really pick up, if it really forces players, giving players a lot of difficulty with all the wind, it could play a little bit more difficult, and I'll be weak to that. But I see it playing as easy, and that's been the difficulty for making this mixed condition model today for my rankings. But we talked all week about off the tee and ball striking in general. So I've got 15% in off the tee in the last 24 rounds, 20% in approach. And I thought I was going to back this down to 15% because I had 20% in last year's mixed condition model. It turns out that there was an outlier year. It wasn't even last year in terms of poor predictive analytics. It was 2021 that the approach really didn't matter. But the other 3 years here at the 3M, the approach has been very important. And both of these are 25 to 30% more important than the average full field course. This is a ball striking course. You have to avoid the water off the tee. You have to avoid water on your approach. I am focused all on the ball striking this week with a little bit of putting, but 15% off the tee, 20% approach. These are the only two metrics that I'm using 24 rounds. The others I'm using 36. There is an article that I stumbled upon this past weekend, and I think I'm going to save it for some off-season or for an off-season show. And looking at golf statistics and trying to figure out what is an appropriate sample size, because that was part of my research and my critique earlier today as well, and this past weekend. Basically, ball striking, long story short, ball striking statistics really stabilize quicker than short game. So that's why the off the tee and the approach are only at 24. If I had around the green, it'd be 36. The putting's at 36. And because I'm using filters on opportunities and good drives, I went 36 instead of 24. But I think that's going to be a show in the off season this fall, looking at golf data and stabilizing. How far back do you want to look at things of that nature. Good evening, AJ. Thanks for jumping in chat. Much appreciated. Do you like Cameron Young or Sungjae more this week? I like Sungjae only because of the tee time. If I remember correctly, I believe Cameron Young is playing in the afternoon. Because I know Sungjae is in the morning. Let's see. There's Carson Young. Yeah. So Cameron Young is in the feature group in the afternoon with Sahith Theegala and KH Lee. I don't know if it's KH Lee or JJ Spaun, but he's in the afternoon. And that afternoon forecast, again, I'm going just by what it looks like, looks horrendous. It looks awful. Now, Sungjae's been in terrible form, no doubt about that. But based on this, I think I would want to prefer... I want to avoid the Thursday PM players as much as possible. All things being considered. And it's not like Cameron Young's been in fantastic form. Yes, he played well at the Open, but he hasn't really been in fantastic form before that either. He's been in better form than Sungjae. So hopefully that answers that question for you. We'll get into a lot more of that for sure here when we go into my rankings and look at the price board, but that's the quick answer. I think I would prefer Sungjae based really solely on tee time. So 35% of the mixed condition model in the two main ball striking statistics, 5% in putting, Bermuda, and or gosh dang it, I typed Bermuda. I put this is bent, so don't worry about that. This is based on bent. I typed Bermuda like a dumbass. On fast and lightning bent greens. But I only have it at 5%. These greens are very easy to putt on. Some of the easiest that multiple sources have listed this week as these greens are very easy to putt. Not a lot of slope, not a lot of undulation. The protection of these greens is the water around them. But once you're on the green, they're not difficult. So I only wanted to put 5% in putting. 10% in opportunities. When it's easy, and this is a part of the mixed condition model that could fail. If the winds stay high, if it causes players trouble, or a lot of the field trouble, could play average, it could play difficult. But the way I see it, it looks easy right now. And even though birdies happen quite a bit here, we saw throughout the week that there was really no advantage on birdies gained versus bogeys avoided. So when that happens, I just kind of like to look at opportunities. So I went 10% in opportunities, last 36 rounds, going back to 2022, easy to par. Good evening, Awaken. Thanks for jumping in chat. Much appreciated. We've got a big crowd tonight. I love it. I hope you have the opportunity after the show, Awaken, or sometime before lineups submit, to replay the beginning portion of the show as I explain how I'm the methodology behind my mixed condition model changed a little bit as I'm using number of rounds as opposed to going back all the way to the beginning of a year. I don't want to rehash all of that because it took about 10 minutes to get through because I can talk. So hopefully you have a chance to replay that at some point. Even over the weekend, not even before the lineups lock, but at some point it'll give you more of an idea of how I changed my methodology. But thanks for jumping in chat, Awaken. Much appreciated. 10% opportunities gained. I talked all week. Good drives gained. Look, there's a whole lot of water in play. You've got to avoid it off the tee. That's part of the good drives gained. You got to be able to hit the green if you do miss the fairway. Because there's not a lot of rough here, but there's enough that it's not like if you miss the fairway, you're in water. There is a little bit of rough here, so if you miss the fairway, I want to see if you are able to recover, considering there's a lot of water that protects on approaches as well. And again, that's using the easy to par filter. It could be a weakness. It could be difficult. I should have maybe used wind. You can argue it. We'll see how the 3-in plays out. But 20% good drives gained, I am very confident that good drives gained is going to be one of the focal points of this week. Players are going to have to hit the fairway. They're going to have to hit the greens. Obvious statements sound obvious, but sometimes fairways or greens aren't all that important. Here at the 3-in, you have to. 5% in par 3s. We saw throughout Sunday and Monday, they just really aren't all that important. Now, the winners have played them well, but for your top 5s, your top 10s, they haven't been all that important. So I just don't feel extremely confident that they're going to factor much into high leaderboard success. So only 5% there. 15% in par 4s, 10% in par 5s of the specific length, 550 to 600 yards, considering the past 3 years, every single par 5, every single round, has played to at least this distance, and only last year did they have a par 5 play over 600 yards. So there's a look at the mixed condition model. Hopefully I've given you some things that could be I could be weak to. Most notably, obviously, the easy to par. I don't have any scrambling in here. I really wanted to put some scrambling in here, but again, I just wanted to focus on the ball strikers, off the tee, approach, good drives gained. You can argue maybe dropping opportunities to 5% and adding some scrambling. Don't have anything with that in there. If putting becomes a bigger deal, I'll be a little weak to that. But this shows you where I'm at. I am focused on the ball strikers this week. All right, I've been rambling for a long time. We haven't even gotten to Microsoft Excel yet. So, the reveal of my rankings for this week's 3M goes as such. And a reminder that this does not take the tee time into consideration. I do that on my own, but that's why I show you Windfinder at the beginning to let you make your adjustments off of that. So this has no tee time based in it. But my top 10 goes as such. Tony Fina is my number 1 player this week. The defending champion. He is 4 for 4 here. Nothing outside of a top 30 in his career at the 3M. He has loved playing this course. Emiliano Grio, second. Doug Ghim, third. Aaron Rai and Hideki Matsuyama round out my top 5. JJ Spaun, Mark Hubbard, Lucas Glover, Sungjae, and Vincent Norman are my top 10. Again, quick reminder, my rankings are a culmination of FNGC rank, which is a purely by the numbers analytics based on the mixed condition model. Percent owned, we're obviously trying to find unique plays, so I do factor in percent owned. Course value is an attempt at giving a player a value based on their performance at that course in the past 5 years. With the 3M, it would be 4 years, and the lower the number, the better. Ghim Reaper, yeah. I was surprised at how high Doug Ghim was rising in my rankings. But you take a look at the things that we are gathering. In his last 24 rounds, he is top 15 in this field in approach. Now, there are some big names here. It's not the strongest field in the world, but you still have Fina and Grio and Hideki and Cam Davis. There's a few bigger names here, and Ghim is still top 15. It looks like his irons are starting to come back around. His big issue has always been, and always seemingly will be, the putter. But I only have it at 5%. And these greens are easy to read. So I do like Doug Ghim this week. Third in good drives gained. He's a very accurate player, so I don't foresee him getting into too much trouble with the water. Top 15 off the tee. Again, a lot of that based on accuracy. I was surprised at how high Doug Ghim had has risen. I can speak English. But he is getting hurt a little bit. He is somewhat popular, at least with the Fantasy National members. Surprisingly, at least for me, Aaron Rai was the number 1 player analytically. Top 5 in irons. He's the top good drives gained player. Again, a lot of this is on accuracy. He's not long at all off the tee, but he is still good enough that he is top 30 in this field. He's also been devouring. I mean, just absolutely crushing the par 4s, and we've put a whole lot of weight into the par 4s. So he's risen quite dramatically. I'm not terribly worried about the fact that he has not played here. With the 3M only having been played 4 years, you had your inaugural winner, Michael Thompson, your winner in 2020, played and made the cut barely. I think he finishes 81st the first year and then comes back and wins. Cameron Champ had never made the cut at the 3M and then wins 2021. So prior performance isn't mandatory. But then you have Fina, who has played exceptionally well every year at the 3M. So I didn't want to ignore it completely. Alarming to see him ranked 86th in approach. What is helping him get in the top 10? So he has played the 3M twice. and he has not finished anything worse than outside the top 20. The irons have been bad. You're not wrong with that. He's actually not top 10 in terms of purely by the numbers. He's 14th. Good drives gained. He's generally accurate enough off the tee because he's not long. But really, he's been very, very good at giving himself opportunities. And even though it's only at 5%, he's been converting them. He's been very good on fast and lightning bent greens in the past 18 months. You combine that with the prowess in prowess in par fives, especially at the length here at the 3M. He's top 15 in par fours. It is very alarming to be 86th in the irons on this course. I agree with you in that regard, AJ. But a lot of it is he's being propped up a little bit by the fact that he has played the 3M well twice out of 4 years. I mean, again, we don't have a lot of tournament history regardless of who you are. So the fact that you played him twice, you've played half the 3Ms, and he doesn't have anything outside of a top 20. So he has played well here, and then he's getting bumped with that. He's also not the most projected owned, probably because he hasn't been in great form. And he's also, not that it factors into the rankings, but he's also on the good side of the draw, at least seemingly in the forecast. Other than maybe Aaron Rai and Doug Ghim, probably not a whole lot of surprise here. Look, J.J. Spaun's been playing pretty darn well lately. Once I went back and looked at his performances and the fact that he's very, very unique. We'll talk about J.J. Spaun when we go through the price board, but when you see the irons have been very good, good drives gained. Think about the place where he won, the Valero, Texas, windy, but it's fairly wide open. Similar style to the 3M. Obviously, those are Bermuda. I believe they're Bermuda, but similar style in the sense that you're pretty free on the tee, as long as you're not spraying it as far left or right that I do, and these players don't because they're pros. All right, let's sort on the price board and figure out where the chalk is and where we can pivot to and try and find some uniqueness. All right, does Eckroat pop in the model this week? We're getting ready to go into the price board, so we'll talk about that. But I will make a mental note to talk about Eckroat. There he is in the mid sevens. So we'll talk about that. 26th. So it's not bad. In the 10Ks, in the 5 digits this week, we have 4 players. Cameron Young at 10.9, Fina at 10.6, Sungjae at 10.3, and Hideki at 10,000 even. You see 3 players that are in the top 10, and Cameron Young falling to 52nd. Again, I don't want to say that Cameron Young is a complete fade. I don't like his tee time. I don't like the half of the draw he's on. That's one. He's also not played this course, so he's getting hurt by that fact as well, as this is an arbitrarily high number. I have to put a number in here so the math will compute, but I set this fairly high because we don't know if a player is going to like the course or not. So generally speaking, these numbers are fairly high on players who have never played here. Despite his Open Championship performance, before then he has not been in really good form. The irons had been shaky. You see he had been pretty wayward with especially the driver. Now, he's always going to be really darn good, if not elite, in off the tee because he's got distance. But he has not had the follow-up year to his successful rookie campaign that a lot of people thought, because he has not been as accurate off the tee than what he was last year. If that starts to come back, Cameron Young's going to be very, very potent. He's been fine on par fours. He gives himself plenty of opportunities too. But his putter's been also pretty lackluster. He's clearly the fourth of the four, especially considering the tee time. But just because he's this far away doesn't mean he's a full fade. He's definitely a fade at 14%. But I don't know. I have a feeling that Cameron Young might be rounding into form. So I think I might want a little bit of Cam Young, but he's clearly the fourth of these four for me. But I don't know. I can't envision Tony Finau being the most unique of these four. The defending champion, he's never played poorly here, but according to the members at Fantasy National, they're going elsewhere in their lineups. I cannot fathom that being correct. I have to think Tony Finau is going to be 15, 18% owned, somewhere in that vicinity. If he is indeed this unique, I will lose again because I was very high on Tony Finau at the Open Championship. It bit me. Granted, everything bit me at the Open Championship. It was just bad. But I have to think Tony Finau is going to be really good this week. The top course value of anybody who's played more than once, top 20 in irons, top 10 in good drives gained. His worst statistic is all the way over here in the par threes, and I don't think those matter all that much here. And that's his worst. He is deep green in everything else. So if Tony Finau is indeed unique compared, or even on the same level of ownership as these other two, fire up all the Tony Finau. He has the good half of the draw. He's playing in the morning tomorrow. Sungjae's playing in the morning tomorrow, and I believe Hideki is too. Let me bring up the page that I have. Yeah. So in the morning tomorrow, it looks like it's Sepp Straka, Finau, and Matsuyama is the feature group of the morning. Sungjae is, I think, maybe a group or two after them. So they've got the good half of the draw. I would normally fade Tony given his form, but the field is so weak, he is a strong play. I have to agree. And his form hasn't been terrible. I mean, he did win 2 months ago. It feels like an eternity ago because 2 majors have happened and maybe even 3 majors have happened since then. But he won 2 months ago in Mexico. I mean, that was in late April. 2.5 months ago. So, I mean, he is still in fine form. I gotta like Hideki. He's played the 3M extremely well. Number 1 in irons in this field. Number 1 in par 4s in this field. So, in the 10Ks, I'm going to go Tony Finau number 1. If he is so popular, if you think he's so popular that he's going to be 20 to 22%, then you might back off a little bit. But all I can go by is what Fantasy National is showing, and he's showing as the most unique. I can't believe that. I would have to think about 15 to 18% for Tony Finau, but I'll still make him number 1 even if he's at 18%. I'll go Hideki second. I'll go Sungjae third. I am still a little bit concerned, to your point, AJ, that you made earlier, that his irons haven't been good. The form hasn't been promising, although he did make, I believe did he top 20 the Open last week? I know he was up there pretty respectable. So I think Sungjae, it won't be long before Sungjae corrects himself, and you're going to want to be on him when he does. I just think I'm much more confident in Hideki playing well this week than I am Sungjae. I'll make Cameron Young 4th. But I do want a little bit of Cameron Young, even if he does have the bad half of the draw. Too bad Grio's on the bad side of the draw. His stats look decent. Yeah, you can see before, factoring in the half of the draw, you see where Grio was. Moving to the 9s, Grio, Sepp Straka, Ludwig Aberg, Justin Thomas, Gary Woodland, Stefan Jaeger, and Cam Davis. You can see in the 9Ks, I think this area of the price board is stacked. Nobody outside essentially my top 30. Jaeger's 31st. Grio, bad side of the draw, but I mean he's been playing very, very well. And the putter, yes, top 20 at the Open. I thought so. Thanks for checking. Grio's putter's been cooperating it was always the putter that was holding him back because he's been a very good, if not excellent, ball striker. Always has been. So when the putter starts cooperating, you got to take a look. I don't like his draw. That's probably why his ownership's a little bit lower than some of these others. I don't know. It's really tough to fade my number 2 overall player. I actually don't know if Ludwig Aberg is going to be very good this week. Everything statistically says yes, but he's in the bad half of the draw. And from what I remember, and it's a very small sample size, he's very new on the PGA Tour, but he has not played well in the wind. Yes, he's a Swede, you would think, European-style golf. He's been over in the States long enough. His game is much more American than European, in my eyes. A lot like Victor Hovland in that case. Very similar in my eyes. I don't know how well Ludwig Aberg is going to play this week, only because he's on the bad half of the draw with all that wind. And this is enough ownership to reasonably fade him. So I will lose if Aberg plays well. Instead, in the 9Ks, I've been coming to Cam Davis. This is pure bent greens. This is much preferred surface for putting. His irons starting to come around a little bit, but he's always been very good off the tee. Always been very good off the tee. Par 4s, he's fine. Opportunities when it's easy. You think about his win at the Rocket Mortgage 2 years ago. Easy course. So I like the way this sets up for Cam Davis, especially it being on bent. So I've been gravitating a lot towards Cam Davis. I believe he's in the good half of the draw. Would have to, yeah, there he is. So yeah, he's on the good half of the draw. I like a lot of Cam Davis this week. Do what you want with Justin Thomas. If you think he's going to, rebound to come back into form, I've tried to play the Justin Thomas game. I can't do it. So I don't know how to treat Justin Thomas right now. Just being honest, P and I have had numerous discussions about Justin Thomas. I don't know if he knows where his game is. I certainly don't know where his game is. If the wind really picks up, I would have to think it's a good play. But, it was really bad at the Open as well. Gary Woodland, another player that, the more difficult you think it's going to be, consider Gary Woodland. But I've been gravitating towards Cam Davis in the 9Ks. And Sepp Straka is going to be very, very chalky. I think he might be the most projected owned player per Fantasy National. That's because he has a great tee time and he's in fantastic form. So it's going to be hard for me to fade Sepp Straka given the tee time, but he's going to be very, very popular. That's why I've been trying to squeeze out a little bit of uniqueness with Cam Davis. I'll probably have some Grio as well, even though he is on the bad half of the draw. So those are the three I'm gravitating towards in the 9Ks. Grio, Straka, and Davis. I will lose, and I will lose horrendously if Aberg plays well. This is close to a full fade. I don't know if it's full fade yet because I haven't made my lineups, but it's close to a full fade. I will see him in person next week at the Wyndham. Not expecting much this week or next. Sepp's on a roll. Yeah. So are you going to be at the Wyndham then, AJ? If so, that's awesome. I'm quite jealous of that. I know P has been to several tournaments. I would like to make it to a couple local or more local ones. Just haven't had the chance to. But if you do go, you will definitely have to come back into chat and let me know how it goes. Moving into the 8s. Don't want to go through every single player here. Glover, I'll be at Corn Ferry this weekend right down the road for me. Excellent. Yes, on Sunday. Well, have fun, both of you. The fun thing for me, the Corn Ferry Tour is now very local. The Corn Ferry Tour Championship is now very local to me. So I'm going to try to get up there for a few of those tournaments. Cam won it. Yeah. And then being at the Wyndham on Sunday, that's awesome, AJ. Have fun and enjoy it. Let's see. In the 8Ks, look, anytime you have a chalky Lucas Glover, I am very, very wary. He rates out extremely well, but he has never played in the 3M well. So take that what you will, and he is the most projected owned 8K player. I am just wary of Lucas Glover anytime he is chalky. Mark Hubbard, analytical darling. He's going to always rate out well because he's a good iron player. His par fours are solid. You got a reason to be skeptical because of the off the tee. Has not been very good lately. Let's see. What is his tee time? Oh, he's very early tomorrow. So he's got him and Doug Ghim have very early tee times tomorrow. So that helps him quite a bit. I imagine Mark Hubbard will be pretty chalky, but I think it's a very solid play. The more difficult you think this gets, the more you need to consider Keith Mitchell, similar to Gary Woodland. But I'm nowhere near Keith Mitchell. One of the best things that I did for the Barracuda, I faded Keith Mitchell because he was the biggest name there, and it didn't suit well for him, and he missed the cut. I do not see the 3M suiting Keith Mitchell very well. If you think it's going to get a bit more difficult, then consider Keith Mitchell. But you see, I've got it playing easy. I don't want any part of Keith Mitchell. JJ Spaun has rated out very, very high, and he's very, very unique. Where is his tee time? I feel like it was in the bad half of the draw. If it is, yeah, he is, I thought so. Yeah, he is in the afternoon with, he's either with Cameron Young and Sahith Theegala, or he's the hole after him. So he's in the afternoon. That isn't great for JJ Spaun. You imagine he's probably going to be pretty unique. If it wasn't for the tee time, I think JJ Spaun would have been a sleeper for me. I mean, you see the irons, you see the good drives game. We talked about him in the reveal of the top 10. That tee time is worrisome. If you're not as scared with the tee time or the half of the draw he's in, I'd fire up some JJ Spaun because the metrics look great for him. I'm just very concerned with that half of the draw. I'm trying to avoid it as best as I can. So in the 8Ks, I didn't talk about Adam Hadwin. He's got a lot of course form. Okay, it's fair. It's a little heavy at 8,900, but the ownership is fair. He's played this event extremely well. Just for $100 more, I'm much more confident or much higher on Cam Davis. Adam Hadwin's probably fair. But in the 8Ks, I might sneak a JJ Spaun or two in some lineups. I'll definitely be using some Mark Hubbard. And I'm just kind of avoiding Lucas Glover. I kind of want to see how Vincent Norman bounces back after his first win in a non-alternate field event. Yes, he played well at the Barracuda, but that's still an alternate field event. Kind of want to see how he performs being a PGA Tour winner in a regular field. Basically Canada. So he at home. I don't know why that message was retracted unless you wanted it to not be put out there, but I mean, yeah, Minnesota basically is Canada. Probably does feel at home. Upper sevens. Aaron Rai is going to be very popular. This is chalk I will not get away from. Love Aaron Rai. Yeah, it's weird. I saw it and then it got retracted. I don't know. Aaron Rai, going to be very popular. Won't be able to get away from this. At the start of the week, I really, really liked Nikolai Højgaard. He's got the last tee time tomorrow, which is awful. With that said, I still am going to believe in what I see in the metrics. The irons, I wouldn't be too worried about the irons. Again, he's been playing in these major championships against, the best of the best in the world. He is a top 75 player in the world. So irons aren't, going to be a struggle for him. His par fours are fantastic. And his par threes, if they end up mattering a lot more, I think Nikolai Højgaard is going to be really good. He's the first wager I put in this week. So, a little bit of foreshadowing for my betting card that comes out on social media after this. I like Højgaard quite a bit. Eric Cole, I think, is going to be okay, but he's going to be very popular. I would be a little bit worried about off the tee type stuff with him. And I believe, is he in the afternoon as well? I think he might be in the afternoon. And if he is, he is in the afternoon, So Eric Cole is probably going to be a fade. This might be a second player along with Ludwig Aberg that I might lose to. Elsewhere, Alex Noren. Take a look at Alex Noren. He generally plays easy courses well. He really putts well on bent. And the irons are starting to come around again. So take a look at Alex Noren. Cameron Champ, former champion here, looking like he's going to be pretty unique as well. I don't know when his tee time is. If it's in the afternoon, I'd be much less on him. Only because there was a question about it. Austin Eckroat, he's going to be very, very popular, but he doesn't have a bad statistic. This is his worst at 85th. Look, if you're willing to eat this chalk, that's fine. I would probably go with maybe a couple of different places, but I'm definitely going to have some Austin Eckroat. So I don't want you to think it's a fade, but that's a lot of ownership on an Austin Eckroat, is what I'll say. That's a lot. Same for Doug Ghim. As much as I love Doug Ghim, that's a lot of ownership for somebody whose putter can get really bad. Really bad. Let's see. In the low sevens, Lee Hodges could be somebody to take a look at. Decent irons. Really just kind of does everything pretty darn well. He hasn't given himself the most opportunities, but he likes these par fives. Hey, Gabe, good evening. Thanks for jumping in chat. Much appreciated. Gabe is the person that I mentioned in the intros. He writes very good articles, so go show some support to Gabe over on Twitter and subscribe to his article. We talking Lucas Glover chalk. We just finished the 8s, and I'm out. I mean, anytime Lucas Glover is chalky, Gabe, you and I have had that talk before. I mean, the metrics rate out extremely well for him, but he has never played the 3M well. The putter, even though these are easy greens, the putter is bad, and he is really bad at the length of par fives. I've got enough reason to fade him. If he plays well, I'll lose. But then I'm going to be eating a whole lot of other chalk than Lucas Glover. So, and I think a lot of the community seemed to be along those same lines when we were talking through the 8Ks. But thanks for jumping in chat. Much appreciated. We're moving back to the low sevens. A few names here. Lee Hodges. Take a look at. Let's see. Kevin Yu. Somebody I've been pretty high on for most of this year. With me focus on ball striking, he's top 5 and off the tee. He really, really performs well off the tee. And in fact, he doesn't really have a bad statistic either. His putter is his worst, and it's not pink or deep red. I kind of like some Kevin Yu. I think he has the bad half of the draw, if I'm not mistaken. If he doesn't, and I don't have these tee times memorized, and I apologize, but I think he's in the bad half of the draw. If he is, that puts me a little bit less on him. He is in the afternoon with Carson Young. Still probably worth a look in the low sevens. Let's see. Elsewhere in the low sevens, there's not much. I haven't really found a whole lot that I'm comfortable with in the low sevens. Either just because of the seeming bad half of the draw, current form kind of makes me nervous. So I don't know how you see the wind draw game, but I see it as a pretty severe Thursday morning, Friday PM wave advantage. But feel free to, Gabe or anyone else in chat, if you agree or disagree. But I see it as a pretty significant Thursday AM, Friday PM favor. So I've not really been focused on the low sevens much at all, which tells you probably the kind of lineups I'm building, because there are a couple of 6Ks I want to throw out for you all. We're already over on time. We haven't even made lineups. I've been going forever. So let me try to work through these fairly quickly as a 440, yeah. And we'll get the next update, late this evening. The first name I want to throw out for you all, take a long look at Trevor Cone. Again, if I was talking about Kevin Yu and his off the tee, for somebody in the 6Ks, his irons are good. Good drives gained. He hits enough fairways. He recovers well enough. But look at this off the tee, especially recently. I really like Trevor Cone in the 6Ks. If he's in the bad half of the draw, I will lower my usage of him. But Trevor Cone's somebody that I've really kind of gravitated towards. And with the importance of the par 5s here, he's been very good at the par 5s. Right underneath him at the same price, Carson Young. I have to think Carson Young is going to be a little bit more popular than the 6%. But Carson Young is somebody really plays the length of par 5s well. You see the amount of opportunities he's given himself. They're falling in my rankings to, just inside and just outside the top 20 because they've never played the 3M because they're rookies. I don't want to beat them up too much for that. I really like both of these players. You see, fifth off the tee for Cone, top 20 in opportunities in the par 5s for Carson Young. Carson Young has good drives gained. At 6K, I think you can do worse. Famous last words, but I've really been gravitating towards these two players. I got a tip from somebody on Harry Hall. He didn't rate out well for me, but I figured I would pass it along that somebody was pretty high on Harry Hall. You would have heard him if you have followed the channel for quite a while. It's my friend Dave, who generally hits quite a few top 10s when he bets. So he liked Harry Hall this week. David Lipsky, another one of your local boys, P. I kind of like. I think he has a bad tee time, but top 30 in irons, top 5 in good drives gained. I like David Lipsky, especially if he's on the good half of the draw. I don't remember. Who is that? Got to admit, I'm not familiar with Cone. Cone is, the vision will be skewed. I'll take you to Fantasy National very, very quickly. He's been playing fairly well as of late. He played well at the Barracuda, third at the Barbasol. Yes, there are alternate field events. I understand that, but he had a top 25 at the Byron Nelson. He played okay at the Rocket Mortgage. He didn't have around the green game, which I know is skewed in your vision, but he's been in decent form. And the off the tee, dang it, it's just off your screen. I'll have to fix it. The off the tee game is immaculate. Do I expect him to gain 6 again? No, I don't. But you see, 5.9, 1.9. He hasn't lost strokes gained off the tee since Mexico. And with the premium on ball striking this week, it's somebody to take a look at. Again, I wouldn't go crazy with it. He is a 6K for a reason, but he is in good form in 2 alternate field events. It's somebody to think about, and I imagine he's going to be pretty darn unique. Although at Fantasy National, they've got him at 8%. I still have to think he's going to be pretty unique. Take a look at David Lipsky at 67. Again, I don't know his tee time, but all about the ball striking. The last name, if you're going to be extremely greedy, trying to fit Fina, Hideki, Mark Hubbard. Just if you're trying to get extremely greedy, take a look at Augusto Nunez. Again, his irons are pretty good. He's going to have to be a lot better at the par 4s, But this is a play on the tee time. He's on the good half of the draw. I think his irons are better than what have been shown recently. This is more of a gut feeling on my end, but I do think Augusto Nunez could be useful in your stars and scrubs lineups. All right, I've been rambling for a long time. So with Gabe here, he knows that I'll be a little bit late to his chat. I apologize for that, Gabe, but we've had quite a bit of a discussion, which has been good. I've been enjoying it. So get your questions ready. I'm going to go through tiers lineups here very quickly. Then we'll make some lineups to try and take down these big GPPs for the 3M. For those who play tiers contests, Tier 1, Cameron Young, Tony Finau, and Sungjae. I can't fathom Tony Finau being the most unique of these three. If he is the most unique of these three, it's Tony Finau. Don't even think about it. Just click and move on. I don't think Sungjae is a bad play, but even if Tony Finau is the overwhelming chalk in this tier, I still think he's just the best play. He is number one in my rankings, defending champion. For a tiers contest, I think he's probably the safe play. So give me Tony Finau in Tier 1. Tier 2, Hideki, Grio, Sepp Straka, Ludwig Aberg, and Gary Woodland. Hideki always has the withdrawal risk, and that is going to kill you in a tiers contest, even more so than a classic lineup. Having said that, it might be Hideki because Straka is the only other one that I know. I don't know Woodland's tee time, but I know Aberg and Grio are in the afternoon tomorrow, and I imagine Sepp Straka is going to be extremely chalky in Tier 2, and Hideki's played this event well. So if you're willing to take that risk, I think the play's Hideki. Sepp Straka is a good play. Woodland might be okay, but give me Hideki in Tier 2. Tier 3, Justin Thomas, Stefan Jaeger, Cam Davis, Adam Hadwin, and Sahith Theegala. I'm just a big believer in Cam Davis this week, so I'm going to be firing up a whole lot of Cam Davis. If I lose to Aberg and Glover, these players for playing well, I will lose if Cam Davis does not play well. I'm just a big believer in Cam Davis this week, and he's got a good tee time. So give me Cam Davis in Tier 3. Tier 4, JJ Spaun, 154 for Woodland. So he's in the bad half of the draw. So yeah, give me Hideki. Give me Hideki in Tier 2. Thanks for looking these tee times up, AJ. I appreciate that. Tier 4, JJ Spaun, Keith Mitchell, Patrick Rogers, JT Poston, Mark Hubbard, Lucas Glover, and Bo Hostler. Hostler coming off a very good Barracuda. Glover's probably going to be chalky, and I would want no part of that. Hubbard's probably going to be pretty chalky in a tiers contest, but I think it's a good play, especially considering he's on the good half of the draw. If you're wanting a lot of uniqueness, take a long look at JJ Spaun. He is on the bad half of the draw. I think JJ Spaun could play well this week. Things, at least analytically, line up for him. But for this tiers contest, give me Mark Hubbard. Tier 5, Vincent Norman, Aaron Rai, Nikolai Højgaard, Eric Cole, Taylor Pendrith, and Alex Noren. Ooh. So many players in here I like, and so many players are in the bad half of the draw. I mentioned how the first wager I put in this week was Højgaard. He's got the worst tee time. I mean, it's the last one, I think. Aaron Rai's in the afternoon, I know that. Eric Cole's in the afternoon, I know that. I keep waiting for Taylor Pendrith to break out, and he just disappoints all the time. Alex Noren's only played this event once, so don't get too caught up in this course value. Oh, what's his tee time? Is it a good one? Yeah, it is. That's what I thought. Play might be Alex Noren, and I think he's going to be pretty unique for a tiers contest. So give me Alex Noren in Tier 5. If you're not worried about the bad half of the draw, I'd probably go Aaron Rai. But give me Alex Noren, and I'm hoping I get a little bit of uniqueness with it. Tier 6, I'm going to have to swivel out of the way, but and move over for you all. Tier 6, we got Dylan Wu, Kevin Stroman, Ben Martin, Mackenzie Hughes, Stuart Sink, Michael Kim, and S.H. Kim. Well, I can sum this up pretty easily. Blah. I don't like anything in here. Yuck. Ugh. Goodness gracious. I don't know. Dylan Wu, I guess? I know S.H. Kim's is on the bad half of the draw. Yeah, give me Dylan Wu, because I have no confidence in Kevin Streelman. This isn't, I mean, it is fairly long, but it's not exactly, I don't foresee it playing difficult. So I don't want Streelman in that case. Mackenzie Hughes is much more about short game, and this is all about ball striking. So I don't want that. Stuart Sink had a good open. I worry about the travel for him. He is older. I just don't have a good gauge on Michael Kim. That's just me being transparent. So I'll take Dylan Wu really kind of by default. I don't like a lot in tier 6. All right. Moving on to lineup building for our big GPPs. We'll make a couple of chalky seeming lineups, and we'll try to figure out how we can maneuver around them. All right. If we're going to build what we think are going to be some chalky lineups that our fellow contestants are going to make in our big GPPs, 121 for Wu, so he doesn't even have a good tee time. So tier 6, I guess, flip a coin, I guess. I don't know. I don't like anything in there. All right. I guess we'll start with Hideki. He is, at least per Fantasy National, the most projected owned player. I still can't believe Tony Finau's that low. I think he's going to be higher. But we'll go with Hideki, and then we'll back this up with Sepp Straka. He's going to get a lot of love, especially with his tee time. And at the bottom, fellow contestants really aren't going very low. Trevor Cohn is at 8%. It's not exactly the most chalky, but he looks like he's the most chalky in the 6Ks. Grayson Sig's getting a lot of attention. So I guess we'll bottom this out at Grayson Sig or maybe Ches Reavie. Let's go Ches Reavie. He's getting a whole lot of attention. So if these are the boundaries that our fellow contestants are working with, Doug Ghim would definitely be in this lineup. He's at 15% per Fantasy National. And you're at that 8,000 mark where you've got probably Lucas Glover, and 76 is Ekro at 75. So there's a chalky looking lineup coming up into the tens for Hideki, but utilizing Sepp Straka. Lucas Glover's probably going to get a whole lot of love. You're at 16%. That is just ugly. This is going to be a fairly popular lineup, I would have to guess. With Cone having a terrible tee time, at somebody that you can maybe, perhaps get off of. I did want to mention it because he does rate out well, and I really like the off the tee game and the off the tee fit for him here at the 3M. That tee time is atrocious. If our fellow contestants are building more of a stars and scrubs look, doesn't look like they're doing that because the 9Ks are so heavily saturated with Straka, Aberg, Jaeger getting some love. But if our fellow contestants are building a stars and scrubs look, we'll go Cameron Young, Sung Jae, and we'll go all the way down to Trevor Cohn, who's the highest 6K. This is Grayson Sig and Ches Reavie. And you have 75, which is Austin Eckroat. I'd try to use different names, but in the low 7s, really, our fellow contestants are gravitating towards, 2 or 3 players, really. There's not a lot in the low 7s. Ghim at 15%, Reavie at 13.5%, Quest also getting a little bit of attention and Sig. Really, those are the only 4 players that are getting a whole lot of love in the low 7s. That's why I wanted to mention a couple of other different names for you all, like Lee Hodges, like Kevin Yu, but really there's not a lot in the 7s that I'm looking at either. So if these are the kind of lineups that our fellow contestants are building, how are we going to maneuver around that? Well, one, you either have to be comfortable going into a 6K and building more stars and scrubs, or we're going to have to beat players like Aberg, like Sepp Straka, with Justin Thomas's and JJ Spaun's. So I'll build a stars and scrubs first, and I have to imagine he's going to be more widely owned than what Fantasy National is showing. But at 11%, give me all the Tony Fina I can get, and I will back that up with Cameron Davis. Maybe not the traditional stars and scrubs look that you would think, going 10-6 all the way down to 9, but there's a lot in the 8s that I like. And there's honestly there's a few in the 9s as well. But I'll just go to Cam Davis, and then we'll go. I'll throw JJ Spaun in this, sure. And then in the 6s, I used Trevor Cone. The other one was David Lipsky, and who was the other one at 68? Carson Young. So I'll go into the 6s for Carson Young here. A little bit of uniqueness off of Trevor Cone. We still got 7,500 per player. Not really approaching that 10% magic number. You know, if you're comfortable with an Austin Eckroat, you can probably take an Austin Eckroat in this lineup. Instead, I will go with, again, you'll just have to forgive me if these have, bad tee times, maneuver around it. I'm just going by players. I'll go Kevin Yu, who I like course fit wise, and at 77 is Alex Noren. This is right on the number. 8%, you're more than likely looking at a unique lineup here. I don't think JJ Spaun is going to be widely owned. Kevin Yu, Carson Young, I think are good fits for the course. P, thanks for jumping in chat, buddy. Always appreciated. Good luck this week and weekend with your contests, and have fun at the Korn Ferry Tour event. Much appreciated. Look forward to hearing about how that was next week. Thanks for stopping in. This is a stars and scrubs look that, is going to be pretty high risk, high reward, obviously. But I like it with Tony Finau. I'm just really high on Cam Davis. Alex Noren is a fantastic bent green putter. I'd be willing to take a chance on that. But if I am not really coming down into the low 7s at all, that tells you the kind of lineups that I have been gravitating towards. That's really these balanced lineups, and I'm just trying to find bits and pieces of uniqueness where I can find them. Even though he doesn't have the greatest of tee times, he's still second in my rankings. It's been a very good form. He's in very good form, great ball striking, and his putter's cooperating. I'll take the chance on Emiliano Grio. And then coming down, this would be Cam Davis, but we can use an Adam Hadwin, who's a little bit chalky, but I think it's fair ownership. He's played the 3M extremely well in his years here. And we don't have to even think about coming down into the lower 7s or even the 6s. We can bottom out at an Austin Eckroat. I'm going to bottom out at Lee Hodges and try to save a little bit of uniqueness. But I still have 8,000 per player. Mark Hubbard's got a great tee time. He's a little bit more chalky, but he's got a great tee time. This is still 8,000 per. Alex Noren's got a good tee time as well. Damon in 6K. Off of a very good Barracuda. Joel Damon is somebody that I was pretty high on for the year, and he's just not played well. The off the tee game is going to have to be a lot better. I'll give you that. I don't see it. If you think the Barracuda, kind of lit a fire under him, he's just as good as some of these other 6Ks. What's his tee time? Does he have a good one? Joel Damon. I don't see him in the morning wave. If he's in the afternoon, then it's a really big no for me. Again, based on the forecast that we have. Yeah, he is in the afternoon. Based on the forecast we have, I can't recommend it. The off the tee has been really bad. He's been atrocious at par fours. He hasn't really given him. I mean, he's given himself a few opportunities, I suppose. But how much is he going to cash him when he's been one of the worst putters on bent in this field? I'm not there. There's a look at. I mean, I know I didn't finish this lineup, but that gives you, a couple of ideas or shells of lineups that I've been working with. Most commonly this one, this kind of shell where I'll go Grio, I'll use Straka a little bit, and I'm willing to come down into the upper sixes for a couple of those players if I'm, coming up for Fina or Sung Jae. Cam Davis I'm really high on. I'll throw in Jaeger, I'm sure, in a lineup maybe. I'll have some Hadwin. Mark Hubbard's in this. I still, even though he's got probably one of the worst tee times, I just have to believe in the talent level of the player. I like Højgaard. Taylor Pendrith's got a good tee time. I don't know how I feel about his game, but he's got a good tee time. So a lot for me is going to be based on the updated forecast that comes out, I believe, around 11. It varies. It can come out as early as 10:30. I've seen it come out as late as 11:30 Eastern time. So if you have the luxury to stay up that late, I highly suggest you do so, because that forecast has been extremely volatile all of today, even into last night. I'll stick around for a couple of minutes. We've been going over quite a bit on time, but I've thoroughly enjoyed it with all the interaction. I'll stick around for a little bit if there's any questions, but a quick reminder that I will be joining Gabe in his Substack chat after the show. So if you are not a subscriber to his article, if you don't follow him on Twitter, I highly suggest you do so. It's a very good, I meant to put that in chat. It's a very good read. It has a lot of good information. We've been working together closely for the past 2 or 3 months now. When you get two analytic minds working together, generally good things happen. Generally, the Open Championship notwithstanding. Let's see, Garnett. Garnett is interesting. Think about Cam Davis. How is his off the tee game and approach? Let me get to Garnett really quick. Garnett's interesting. He has played this event pretty well, and I believe he's played it more than once. He's accurate enough off the tee where he is not the best on bent. So I worry about the fact that he doesn't give himself many opportunities. For somebody in the mid sixes, and I believe he's got a good tee time. If he has if he's in the good half of the draw, I don't hate it. Like I said, I would go to a couple of different places before Bryce Garnett, but I don't hate it. If he's in the afternoon, I would really, really have to have a strong feeling about a player that's not elite if I'm going to use an afternoon tee time. Bryce Garnett, he's in the afternoon, pretty late in the afternoon, so I don't know. I can understand it with the good drives gained. I mean, his irons aren't atrocious. They're not, Harry Higgs level. But with that afternoon tee time, as the forecast stands now, and it could always change, I don't know. I don't see it. I don't see it with Garnett. If you're looking at that, come up to Norlander. Even better with the irons. Look at the good drives gained. Now, yes, the off the tee and the par fours are worse than Garnett, but I would much rather play the iron player in Norlander and, you know, hope that the par fours come around. Garnett's a little bit better on the putting, but Norlander's much better on the par fives. I think I would go Norlander over Garnett at the 6.5 price, but I'm not in love with either one for what it's worth. Cam Davis. Again, a lot of Cam Davis, he's on the good half of the draw. The irons, I have to believe, are better than this, but they haven't been the greatest in the past 24 rounds. The off the tee game is strong. Very, very strong for Cam Davis. Par fours have been good. Gives himself enough opportunities. And even though this is showing that he's been bad on fast and lightning bent, think about his win. It was the Rocket Mortgage, bent and Poa annua, but bent is by far Cam Davis's best surface. I'll bring him up. Skewed vision, I know, but Cam Davis. I mean, he's been negative the other two surfaces. He likes bent. And oh shucks, I'm gonna have to change the view. And if the wind does pick up, he's been at his best in the wind. He also plays easy very well. So that's why I'm high on Cam Davis. He missed the cut at the Scottish, but top 20 at the Rocket Mortgage. A decent Travelers. You know, I can't say it's fantastic, but, you know, a decent Travelers. Don't forget he top 5 to Major earlier this year. I'm a big believer in Cam Davis. I'm just waiting for him to break out. And, you know, I could be waiting a little bit longer. But I got a gut feeling on Cam Davis this week. But with that, P had to jump off of chat early, but I want to thank P and Steven, AJ. And AJ, you've been a big help looking up tee times this evening. Really appreciate that. Awaken, Gabe, everybody for jumping in chat. This was a fantastic show. Lots of interaction. I love it. Reminder, I'll be over in Gabe's Substack chat, so if you're not following him, if you've not subscribed to his article, go do so. I've been in and out. Thanks for everything you do. Let's catch some lineups. That's the goal. We're going to try to make it back-to-back weeks. I hit Batia last week. We're going to see if we can't continue a decent momentum, at least from the Barracuda last week. But thanks to all of you for jumping in chat, and thanks to everyone else out there who tunes in, watches, listens, supports the channel. I always appreciate it. I've recently hit 100 subscribers, and that wouldn't be possible without you all. To come back, enjoy the content that I put out. It's very, very much appreciated. For all the wagers you've made this week for the 3M Open, for all the DFS contests you've entered this week for the 3M Open, for this weekend and every weekend, may all your bets be profitable.